Hi everyone, I'm Mike Pappas, and I beat the often path by helping to moderate online platforms to keep everyone safe.
Welcome back to the Beat the Often Path podcast. I'm your host, Ross Palmer. On this show, we believe that unusual times call for unusual success stories, and boy, do we have one of those for you today. Joining me is Mike Pappas, the CEO and co-founder of Modulate.ai, a startup using cutting-edge machine learning to make voice chat safe. Well, in case you don't play online games, there's an entire universe of people out there who play games like Call of Duty, League of Legends, all that stuff, and they use in-game voice chat to communicate with each other. The problem is, like other digital avenues and platforms, these spaces can be made toxic by bullies, trolls, and hateful people. For years, this toxicity has been seen as something of an unsolvable problem. Well, Mike and his co-founder have created a product called ToxMod that is a significantly more effective and cheaper way to moderate voice chats, creating a better experience for the vast majority of players who aren't, bullies or jerks. They've raised over $30 million in funding so far, and they've recently made Time's list of the 100 most influential companies. It's a brilliant solution to a problem that you might not even have thought about. So here's Mike Pappas of Modulate.ai. So let's start with the problem that you're addressing, which, is there even a problem? Because I wasn't aware of any problem. Aren't all online platforms inherently safe?
Boy, I wish, but unfortunately that's not the case today. Ranging in sort of problem severity from things like hate speech and harassment, which I think everyone kind of knows are unfortunately prevalent online, up to the really kind of insidious stuff, violent radicalization, child grooming, self-harm campaigns, and sort of pushing folks in that direction through
But hang on, I've got to stop you right there, because that's just free speech. There's no such thing as hate speech or harassment. Let's just start with that assumption, right?
I mean, sure, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but when you're walking down the street, you're headed to the grocery store, and I'm driving by, and I roll down my window and I shout a bunch of slurs at you.
Happens
How
all
does
the
that
time.
make you feel? That's not something that you're going to say, oh, I'm glad that I had that experience. We're not talking about what I have the right to say, whether, the police should chase me down for shouting that from my car. We're talking about what makes for a good experience in an online platform. These platforms, especially game studios, like they're in the business of creating a fun experience, of creating an experience people want to go and participate in. And so if the situation is that there's people driving by and shouting all of these slurs, they haven't succeeded at creating that fun experience. Whatever name you want to put on it, that's a problem for them, and that's something that they want to do something about.
But harassment is just part of the fun.
Maybe for a small number of people, when people actually do. I know you're joking on it, but it's unfortunately it's a thing that we do hear every.
I guess
every
for a
now
certain
and again.
percentage of the population, yeah.
And in fact, it's about 2%. There have been 2%. A ton of studies. There have been studies across games, across different kinds of online platforms. What we consistently find is it's about 2, maybe 3% of players or users on these online platforms who are kind of there to mess with people, who are there because they enjoy going out and just being as kind of radical, extreme, offensive as possibly they can. Those
Trolls.
2 to 3%. Trolls, yeah. And that 2 to 3%, they make up for, depending on the platform, anywhere from 20 to 50 or 60% of the bad experiences people have. No, that's not 100%. A lot of the remainder comes from anything from someone having a bad day to you don't know the cultural norms in this new group that you walked into, so you say something that you didn't realize was offensive, to just people who are ignorant but not necessarily malintended, right? Which is unfortunately just a thing that the world's evolving quickly. Not everyone has that full context. So education's important. All of that is important. But time and time again, what we see is there really is this small but very core contingent of users online who are, very much intending to go out and create this negative experience. But the vast majority of people, they don't feel that way. They've succumbed to the expectation that there's nothing we can do about hate and harassment. And so we're just going to accept it, I guess. I guess I'll just mute that person. I don't have another choice. but 98% of people do raise their hands and say, I wish it wasn't this way. I wish something could be done. I just don't know what's possible. And, the studios have been working hard on this problem. They've made some progress. I think with our help, they're making a lot more progress. But one of the big challenges is, if the studio just goes out and says to their players, we promise it's safe now, it's not toxic anymore, who's going to buy it, right? And so a big part of what we're really trying to work with the studios on is, look, we're not just here to flag these dirty words to you or something. We're really here to work with you on a strategy for your community that includes them in the process, that actually has everyone come together and say, what do we want this game ecosystem to look like in the first place? And then let's all collaboratively build towards that. But that's a really important nuance that I think a lot of folks miss is, yes, we sell to the game studios, but a huge part of the work that we're doing is in making sure that we're working closely with the players as well to understand what are they concerned about? What do they want out of this platform? And, if they want a space where, that small percentage of folks can just go all out and, really, the trash talk to end all trash talks, sometimes that's okay, as long as we can curate that space for them. And you're not going to have some unsuspecting 10-year-old wander into that space by accident without knowing what they're getting into.
Got it. So just sort of like the, the section of a video store in the olden days. Just sort of, you're all sectioned off in your own little corner, and you do whatever you like in that corner, but just don't come out here with the rest of us. That sort of idea.
Something to that effect. And, it's not don't come out here with the rest of us. It's just if you come out with the rest of us, there's a new set of expectations.
Don't
you
do
can't
that.
Bring that behavior to here. And honestly, like that's like to a less extreme extent, that's how we live our lives. The way that you behave, when you're playing, I don't know, pick up soccer with your friends at a park versus when you have a couple of close friends over for a bunch of beers versus when you go to church. You're behaving very differently. There's words that you will and won't say in each setting. There's norms that you learn about what is acceptable here and just what is going to cause people pain in a way that I don't want to create. I don't want to sort of deal with the repercussions of. That's what we're talking about here. It's not saying the way you are is bad. It's just saying, some games, especially games that are more focused on children, aren't trying to be a rowdy bar. They're trying to be more the equivalent of a playground. Right. And if someone in the real world went to a playground and just started talking very loudly about some of the things people talk about in online games, some of the nearby parents would have some words for them, right? That's just not the place to have that conversation.
Yeah. And the tech is called ToxMod, right? Do I have that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So from a high level point of view, how does it work for an ignorant person such as myself?
No, please. So if you don't mind bearing with me for, let's call it 2 minutes here.
Okay.
If you're an online platform, if you're an online platform and you're trying to moderate voice, what do you do? Well, the first answer is most platforms just give up. They say it's hopeless. This is impossible. Let's skip past that and say, what do you do if you're actually trying? The first obvious idea is, why don't I transcribe everything that's said and then analyze the text? Now, this is bad for a bunch of reasons. You're missing out on a ton of, emotion and nuance in the conversation, but also it's actually ridiculously expensive. Transcription costs just a ton of money. It's about $1 per hour of audio on most of the major platforms. If you're talking about a major title like a League of Legends, that might be something like 100 million hours of audio per month. Multiply those numbers together, and even Riot Games just can't afford to do that, right?
Wow.
So the next thing these platforms say is, we can't transcribe everything. How do we focus our attention on a smaller set of things to then transcribe and analyze? And the immediate thing that pops to everyone's mind is, let's wait for player reports, and then we'll analyze the stuff players report. that works okay, except for the fact that, players often report others for just being better than them or various fake reasons. So it's only 30% actionable. We only see about 8% of bad behavior ever get reported. And that number is much, much lower for things like child grooming, where the kid doesn't know what's happening to them. And so you're missing a huge amount of stuff there. It's something, but it's not good enough. So the way ToxMod is different is we say, instead of trying to transcribe everything, or instead of just waiting for player reports, why don't we use some of this incredibly cool machine learning technology we've built to analyze the emotion, the behavioral dynamics of the conversation, the ups and downs of the energy of it, and use that to kind of recognize which of these conversations have the telltale sign of going badly in some way. Whether
awesome.
That's, people are starting to shout at each other, someone new joined the conversation and everyone got real quiet, or, it's a one-on-one conversation between an older male sounding voice and a young prepubescent female sounding voice. And then you look and see, hey, that older male has 3 other one-on-ones also with prepubescent girls. Maybe we should take a closer look at that. And so all of these sort of machine learning cues let us focus much more effectively. And instead of only catching 8% of the bad activity with 30% accuracy, we're catching anywhere between, let's call it 30 to 60% of the bad activity at 95% accuracy. And that's, before we further train and improve the system to get better and better at finding that bad behavior.
So, have you made a dent in any of this, do you feel? Do you feel that things are changing or still very much TBD?
I mean, yes, we've made a dent, but also it's not nearly enough. And that's why we're continuing to go out and, push further and work with larger and wider variety of studios. But we're out there with a number of studios today. We've been out with some studios, for instance, Rec Room, the social VR platform, for over a year now, where we've been, continually working with them and helping them identify, problematic players of a variety of types. And we're hearing really positive things, not just, seeing it in the stats is one thing, but honestly, hearing from players, hey, I came back to this title 3 months later after having this really bad experience, and it's changed. It feels different now. That's really gratifying to see. And so I think we have made a real dent on those titles we're live with. I think we've also made some dent in the industry. You're seeing all of these big studios suddenly kind of waking up and saying, oh, wait, we've got to do something about voice moderation. There have been a couple announcements over the last year or two. Trust me, there's more announcements coming. A lot of these studios making entirely new teams specifically to focus on this problem. They're really kind of realizing there's something big here. And while we can't take full credit for that, I do like to think we've played a small part by showing that it's possible to do better.
Well, I'm glad that you found your way and your path. It's a very cool path. I wish you incredible success. Thank you so much for sitting down with me and sharing your ideas and your thoughts. I look forward to you dominating the world in short order. I can't wait to hear about it in the next decade. It's going to go very well. To wrap this up, any closing remarks, anything you want to promote or direct people towards? I'll let you finish this episode.
I appreciate it. We've been growing the team pretty rapidly over the last couple of months. You mentioned, we raised some money not too long ago. Very thankfully, given the economy. So we're still hiring for a couple of roles. If anyone's listening and interested, Modulate.ai/careers. I'm very passionate about culture. I like to think we've got a pretty unique thing going here, even beyond the product that we're building. So check it out if you're interested. And otherwise, Ross, thanks again for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. The pleasure is all mine. And with that, the official podcast is over.